Morning, Jay.
Morning.
Good to be here again. This time around, though, your studio kind of all wrapped up, nice and neat. All your artwork's up. Looks really, really good in here. Very
Thanks.
kind of inspirational. I know some of these, artwork's been in your other office for a while, but now as a collection, it really adds, kind of a hidden message to your thoughtfulness and where you want the studio to present a certain vibe, if you would.
Nice.
Especially the big one on the back wall here from your buddy Tony is quite nice. I like it.
Thanks.
I like it a lot.
I still got to fill stuff up in the background, but it's coming along.
But it looks real nice. Looks good. But it's been a couple minutes since we've been together doing this. Glad to be back with you on it. Again, this is our 15th episode of the next episode, which is encouraging, but good to be here. And I thought today had sort of a interesting thought as I was writing the last article for Terry's Thoughts. It was about mindfulness and being authentic, mainly driven by where I'm kind of at in my journey and in the encore phase of life. But also, you've been not saying it just recently, but writing more on authenticity in your daily notes. And so as I was writing that article and thinking about discussion, I thought, well, it might be a little entertaining for us to address being authentic from a couple perspectives. One, is it just each moment in life as we're progressing through our life's journey and experiences that we have need to pause and identify if we really are living this quote unquote authentic life, or what does that really mean? Or is it something that is more than a buzzword? Because, in addition to you, just about other things I'm reading, they're all talking about being authentic and finding your authenticity and so forth and so on. But it all seems to be intermixed with the idea of, really defining who you are, loving yourself, all of those other, concepts and theories of what makes us who we are. So I thought it might be nice from perspective of a millennial and a baby boomer, representing not just those classes of generations, but more so where we're at in our perspective phases of life. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to use midlife because depending on even how you look at life today, whether you in your 40s is midlife or me in my 60s is midlife these days, because everybody now has a different definition. So just looking at it from a perspective of, we'll just say our classes, the mm-hmm. millennial, kind of young and upcoming mindset versus this old man and a, very set in ways sort of mindset of what this all really means. Mm-hmm. And maybe address kind of a little bit of an academic view of it and more of a practical view. And before I kind of get into asking you the question and lead off, kind of the synchronicity of it all, your last two daily notes, you've added a lot to what being authentic is. Mm-hmm. So before we jump into, I want to first kind of take an academic view on it a little bit and say, okay, what does Webster say about this? What is authentic? And as always, right, lots of different definitions, but the idea of, it says authenticity means you're true to your own personality, values, spirit, regardless of the pressure that you're under to act otherwise. So that's kind of a little set on that. And then you referenced in your last two daily notes, the one is from Light After Death, right? The book mm-hmm. by Vincent Tolman, is mm-hmm. that right? Yeah, Vincent Tolman. You quoted several pieces from there, but the one that really struck and resonated with me about authenticity is the core of authenticity is love. Mm-hmm. When you truly love yourself, even with your imperfections, then you can truly open up yourself to real growth and progress. Love is like a tangible energy field. It's like electricity, but stronger. It's what powers everything God has made. So I really, really like that to fit into some of our discussion of what that means. And then your recent one this week from your favorite, J. Cole, he talks about, you mentioned, clarify and define your vision for yourself in the highest possible way you can see it. And he talks about number 2, you got to believe it. Then 3, you got to work towards it. Mm-hmm. So the only reason I wanted to reference those, let's just say from a little bit of an academic perspective on our talk today, is this idea again, is it just hype and, a phrase today that everybody's saying authentic, or is authenticity truly nothing more than, you're living your life. Mm-hmm. And as you go through your life, you discover different things about yourself, your capabilities, your values. Your values are always tested in life, right? I mean, just living our life, we're always testing our values because of different reasons. So I just wanted to bounce that back and forth with you a little bit, mainly because it just seems to me that I never really thought about, in depth on having to determine whether I'm living my authentic life, whatever that's to mean. Because to me, it was just, this was the vision that I had for my life. So a little bit of back to J. Cole, right? Identify your kind of vision, your dream, and then discerning whether and how you live that and what you got to do. Singling back in the idea of, and this is maybe where I've learned a lot about myself, is learning to love more of yourself, mm-hmm. right? And separating that a little bit from everything else you put into your life, depending if a family's a part of your life or not. And then so many of us, of course, define our life by our careers. We think we need to be this kind of person, and truly, is that who we really are? Because I think we all follow a certain path that way, at least the majority of us. We grow up wanting to be this for some reason. Mm-hmm. And some reason behind that obviously is driven by all sorts of factors, whether we're just lucky enough to know who we are when we're young, or we learn to develop that as we go along and become who we are, mainly because of the experiences in the life we lead. Mm-hmm. I don't know which comes first, the chicken and egg, the cart before the horse, whatever. But I think our view on living that true life of ours, for me, is nothing more than living that life, mm-hmm. whatever that is. We've had talks about my journey in life led a little bit to your journey in life, because maybe things were different if my journey in life went a different way, right? Mm-hmm. Who's to say? We don't know that. We don't hold the crystal ball. But I've got to believe some of, your life and where we're at today and what's allowed you to become more of who you are is driven by events that occurred, mainly because we grew up here in mm-hmm. Indy versus growing up somewhere else, or whatever influences I may have been able to have. So in examining this, I just want to ask you from the millennial perspective, what is it you're talking about when you're saying live your authentic life? Are you just using the buzzword? I know you in your writings and your discussions, you talk about really it is that lower level of taking that deep look at yourself and finding your purpose and knowing that. But what really is that? Are you just reciting rhetoric and doing that, or what really is your definition of an authentic life?
I know you're trying to make me mad by asking me if I'm using the buzzword.
I know. That's why I wanted to get it.
When I started talking about it, I even thought about trying to come up with a different word, because authenticity is overused. So yes, it is a buzzword, but it is a buzzword because there's truth behind it. And that's what people do, is they find these things to be either true for themselves or they see to be true for other people, and they run with it because they know that deep down we all want to be the person we want to be. We all want to be authentic. So if I talk to you about how important it is to be authentic, or how you can be authentic, then I'm going to pull you in. And so many people who use the buzzword of it are trying to push services and different things. And I guess I am as well, wanting to help people find their authentic life through life planning, but my desire is more out of a service to others versus a course or a book or something like that. And not that those things are wrong, but so yes, it's a buzzword because there's truth. It wouldn't be a buzzword if people weren't interested in it. No one would pay attention to it. But when you hear authenticity, or you talk about being authentic, and people who aren't, they want to learn how they can be, and they may not even know what the authentic version of themselves is. They just know the version that they are is not who they really want to be. And I don't there's not a checklist you can go through. I mean, I could probably put together a checklist of like 10 feelings or 10 experiences that would be a sign of if you're not being true to yourself. But deep down, I think it's just a feeling. And it goes back to the quote about love. You know, so much of inauthentic living is seeking love from others, approval from others, opinions of others, where if you love yourself and you're happy with who you are, and I think you're happiest with who you are when you are as close to your authentic self as possible, then it doesn't matter what other people think. You're not living your life to appease others. You're living your life in the way that feels right to you. And so much of authenticity and living an authentic life, I think, is a feeling. And either you know and you don't. And I think some of us are more in tune with our inner communications, how we feel, what our body's telling us, that we know when it's right and when it's not. And I can look back over time, and I thought I was being true to who I was, but then I look back and I realized, no, I really knew I was stretching. I was trying to force myself to be something, and those situations never worked out. They didn't blow up, but they didn't work out to be what they were supposed to be. And I can look back and be honest with myself and know that I was forcing something, trying to convince myself that it was an opportunity, that it came to me, so I should pursue it. And I'm glad I did it because it helped me get to here. But then those experiences also helped me know, when am I trying to force something today? So I believe that we all have a life that we are created to live, which is what I would say is our authentic life. And I think part of our purpose in living is to figure out what that is. Some of us, I don't know why, are more likely to find it sooner than others, and some people will never find it. And some of it is, influences over life and situations that make it harder. But I think deep down it's in there. And I think if you look at like any faith, regardless of what it is, there's going to be scriptures and literature that will speak to these types of things, that like, I think no matter what you believe, your creator is telling you, like, you have a life that you're supposed to live down here to bring the best version of yourself and to bring something very unique to the world that the world needs, that only you can do. But we're not just going to tell you exactly what it is. Like, right. It's an experience those experiences along the way help you find what it is. And I don't think I've talked about the authentic life is an evolution. So I may look back in 5 years and be like, man, back in 2024, I thought I knew who I was, but I didn't. But I think that I am living true and living an authentic life to who I know that I am today. But every day I'm trying to learn more and more and move closer and closer as that life evolves.
Yeah, I think that's how I feel about it. And to quiz you just a little harder on the subject, I think our life is, moments in time. As you just said, we only know who we are at the given time that we're here. We all have, I think, a feeling of where we'd love our life to go or where we'd like to see ourselves. And I think we go through life doing just that because we're taking a path. Different things happen in our life. We have to then deal with that event in our life or that moment in life based on what that is. So as you indicated, or at least led into a little bit, I think it is just that. We have to be different people in our lives as we grow up because we are challenged to handle life at that moment. Obviously, as we get into our lives, if family becomes a part of our life, we're living that life because that's what we wanted to have, and you have to pour everything into that. Mm-hmm. And I think the difference, what I'm sensing and what I'm beginning to feel more comfortable with is, in my words, I guess, back to folks who may be listening in, or maybe even still a father to son who, even though the son knows much more than I do, it's okay to just live that moment and don't try to dig deeper into that and try to, as you said, challenge yourself or figure it all out, because we have to enjoy that moment that we're in, like just as you are right now with Rome's and Silas and Leo. Each of them are different individuals, so you have to have different moments with them. You can't fit them all in the same box because they definitely aren't all the same as we're learning. And if you're trying to do that, just as we try to do, as I reflect back over with you and Kristen, we try to do things to help, and a lot of times we're not, because we're not allowing you to experience yourself, right? So I think back to, those days, and even more these days, looking at you in your time of life and seeing where it's at. It's fun to watch you, become your own, and I'm seeing you evolve, as in the same way that I'm seeing Kristen evolve. But it's funny, even though you're evolving, and we don't know who you're going to be a year from now, or how Kristen will be a year from now, or any of you, Ange and Devin. The fun part of it is when you think about you, and when I think of you back in the day, a lot of what I'm seeing today is just how I thought things would roll out, or where you would find yourself. Because I looked at you when you're younger, you see the creativity. Like when I look at you, I think of back in the day when you were learning the play and the game, and as you developed, that's you. That was your authenticity, and I'm using that just as more of a vision to say, who is this kid of mine? How is he going to become an adult? When I watched you on the court, it was so much fun, not only because you were damn good at the game. It was when I watched you play and watched you put all those hours and shots up in the gym, those little pieces of you at that time really defined who you were, not just as a kid, as a young adult, and now as a big adult. You think of that, and you see, saw you, a lot of hard work, a lot of competitiveness, the perfectionist, a creative part of you, from the little, the art classes you had in middle school, and then some of the pieces you did in high school. Even though you don't consider yourself creative in that artistic way, if you look at some of those pieces of art that you did, you're looking at, this kid's got some creativity in him. But also, when you played the game, you exhibited that you were a leader. You had a sense of seeing the floor and being able to be different pieces. There was always the good piece in there when when you loved when people would be talking to you, then all of a sudden you see the spark in your eye, and then, okay, watch out, world. He's gonna be shooting things on fire. And so when I look at that, I say, well, that's who Justin is. And you take those qualities and you fast forward to 2024, and you look at the work you're doing today. So much of that is you, and why you're able to accomplish what you have accomplished, what you're building. And I can do the same for Kristen, looking at Kristen as a child and how she's fit herself and where she's ended up, and her evolution continues. I like what you said about, our life is an evolution. So for me, back again, landing on the point of, I think trying to keep saying we're going to need to find and be our authentic selves. I think we are that person without even thinking about it. Because we react the way we need to as life gives us the opportunity to, whatever that opportunity is. I mean, you faced that, you've made some adjustments, you went from saying, okay, I'm not going to be this, I'm going to go this direction. I think that's quite natural and is very rewarding.
I
right?
disagree. Most people don't do that.
Well,
Most people don't change and follow who they evolve, but they don't evolve to who they want to be. Like, they stay in careers, they stay in relationships, they stay in things that don't really fulfill them because of comfort or because of fear. I don't think most people do. I think that's why authenticity is a buzzword, is because most people don't do it, yet most people want that. So let's talk about it. Let's write courses about it. Let's use the buzzword, and let's say we're authentic, but deep down, they're really not.
Well,
so I don't think I think there are aspects that show up of who the authentic person is, reactions and things like that. That might be like a glimpse of who's really in there. But I don't think the majority of the people are living true to who they are. There's different scales, like there's 0 to 100. So maybe on average, people are at 40, 50% of who they truly are. But they're not embracing who they really are because of fear of other people's opinions or whatever it might be. Like, I don't think that most people do. I think a lot of people don't even realize it. I think there's people in the middle who realize it but are afraid. And then I think there are people who are moving closer towards, all right, I'm tired of not being true to myself, and this is the direction I want to go, and how do I get there? And I wrote about life planning. Actually, I just released it last night. So I have like periodicals I'm writing now on my website that are longer form, not daily notes. And so the first few are going to be about what is life planning. So the first one is what is life planning. Last night is who is life planning for. And I think life planning is for people who want to live a more authentic life. But the 4 avatars that kind of jump out to me first are like the midlife awakeners. Some people might say midlife crisis, but like midlife awakeners. You've lived enough time on this earth. You've experienced enough to know what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy, what you're best at. Kind of you kind of have an idea of what your ikigai might be, and you're ready to move into that. Like I think this is a lot of where I was and still am a couple years ago, like awakening to who I really want to be and awakening to kind of how things really operate in the universe, and spirituality becomes a part of it. So midlife awakeners, trauma survivors. So whether it's trauma to you or to a loved one, or it doesn't even have to be like the obvious trauma is near-death experiences or losing a loved one or a cancer diagnosis, but it could be other things can be traumatic as well. I mentioned like the whole COVID experience. Like that was traumatic to a lot of people and opened their eyes to, well, maybe I don't have to go into an office, and I had all this time and I did this thing and this made me more happy. And like you open your eyes out of a trauma. There are, what is it? Midlife awakeners, trauma, people who are just naturally seeking greater purpose. So that's just in their core. That's any age. They just are constantly looking for more purpose. It's almost like they already know something's inside of them, and they can't figure out what it is, and they're pursuing it. And then the final one was, I got to look at it. It's going to drive me crazy.
Well, that's while you're looking at it, I go, well, but what you're describing, even though you've defined it and put some borders and some titles to particular areas of feeling or strengths or caution or fear, but isn't that just? But that's where we're at today and talking. But isn't that just life? Like you said, whether or not I am fearful and don't want to go to the next level, obviously is driven by more than one factor, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, one of which may be that even though I know that I want to go this way, I may not be able to, and it may only be at this point in my life. I mean, you're right, I may not be able to live my authentic life now because I've got a family of, X number of children. This is the circumstances I have in life, whatever that may be.
Then that becomes your authentic life.
That's your life. That's what I'm saying.
The fifth one was wealthy, successful people who realize more is not going to make them happier. Right. So it's the guy who exits selling a business and has $100 million and finally realizes $200 million is not going to make him happier. Or they have success and they realize getting a promotion, like those things aren't fulfilling, and now they want to go figure it out. But what you're saying is that person, if they know, like they can still be living their authentic life today. Their authentic life today is not going to match what it is in the future because it's an evolution. So I can, right. Example being my authentic life in 11 years probably is not in Fishers, Indiana. I would love to live in Sedona, close to California, out west where it's sunny and warm all year round. I could make that my life today, and I could make that could be a version of my authentic life. But then when you weigh in family happiness and where we are in life, that is not as much as I like that, that's not a part of my authentic life today because family outweighs sun all year round. But so I'm living my authentic life today, even though part of me wishes I was out west. Being here and having the life that we have and living the life that we're living right now, that's more important to me than being out west. But when those things go away, the boys are in college, they're off on their own life, then we can have a townhome here if they happen to settle here, and we can go move out west and live that part. So just because there's something more that you might want or something that you want to pursue, if now is not the right time for that, that doesn't mean you're living inauthentic.
Okay. Yeah, that's just what I wanted to kind of clarify a little bit, because for me, the use of and we really shouldn't say that authentic is a buzzword, but I guess it is. But it is today, just like, fads. Things happen, somebody comes out with this fad and everybody follows it for a while. Like they jump in both feet and follow it for a while, whether it's a diet, whether it's a certain exercise program that's gone big because of some good marketing and people jump on it, and then you find out later that really the net effect of those things isn't anything more than if you just kept on doing what you were doing with a few little adjustments. I didn't need to join this gym to do this specific type of exercise routine, when that exercise routine is not very different from what I'm doing right now. It's just a little bit more of the intensity, or having someone with a little bit of experience help you understand more how to do something. Same thing was with diets, or just in this case, I'm going to call it an intellectual discussion on how is it I should be leading my life, and where does that bring us. The interesting piece is, as you kind of alluded to a little bit in one of the categories, is maybe more our growth and our want to do something is because we're maybe just a little underachieving at a time.
Hold on, thought. I need to pause restart the camera. All right.
Okay.
Back to it.
So maybe it's a little bit more of just an underachieving at a particular point in our life, that as we're having that little bit of self-doubt or concern of, am I really doing the right thing? Maybe we could pour a little bit more or a little bit less into something to get us there. Like you said, those who are, overachievers, putting in a lot of time because they feel this is who they are. Maybe really are that sort of way, want to be successful, or define their life and their success as being that overachiever, or driven by the need to have success, which means title and position and all the personal attachments that life gives us, versus when they're finally done with it and they're older and their children are grown and young adults living in their family, they go, well, geez, I wish I'd have had more time, right? Or did more at that particular point in time. As we know, there's lots of
chances
people.
are they didn't take the time to really examine who they were when they were the overachiever. And a lot of times, and I don't know this from experience, but I've read this, a lot of time overachievers are motivated by an underlying trauma. There's something that makes them overachievers that they're overcompensating for or trying to make up, and it could be a number of things, like feeling like you were never good enough for your parents or whatever it might be. And it could be like small things. It could be like one teacher said one thing that stays in this person's head that makes them, they're going to show them, and they become overachievers. But if the overachiever then looks back in life and says, I wish I had more time back with my kids, then I think that is an indication that they were not living true to who they really were. Because I don't think your realization of your values might be more clear when you're older and you look back, but I think your values about your family were always there. You just never took the time. That's the life planning process. But you don't, here's why authenticity will fall out of being a buzzword, is because people will realize it's hard work to live an authentic life. Once you get there and evolve with it, it becomes a little bit easier because you're doing the things that you enjoy and that you're the best at, and things kind of fall into line. But to move from, I don't like saying inauthenticity because it seems like you've done something wrong, but to move from a life that is not true to you and not authentic to you, that's shaped by someone else, to the one that is yours, can be a very drastic change, can be very scary. There can be a lot of things that you have to change to get there. And a lot of people don't like change. They like comfort, and they don't make that transition. And I think that is why people will stop talking about authenticity, is as people begin to pursue it and look into it, they realize, well, if I want to be who I really feel like I'm going to be, I have to make a lot of changes. And I don't want to make those changes. So let's stop talking about authenticity, because it makes me feel bad that I can't be true to who I am. I think that's going to be the curve. And then I don't know what the next buzzword will be, but there will be another buzzword that comes up, and people will stop talking about authenticity because it's hard. And I think that there's a range of where people fall, and I don't know how you luckily fall closer or further or unluckily further away, but I just think we're just naturally somewhere on this scale, and some people just happen to be lucky to be closer to their authentic self, or the changes they have to make aren't as great, and it becomes a little bit easier, becomes less scary.
Yeah.
But like, and that thought makes me think about the readings that I've done that talk about like our souls, and like our soul, the purpose of the soul is to learn in this experience because there will be other experiences, and you carry that knowledge with you. So I think about somebody who might start out and be closer to the authentic version of themselves. Like maybe there's something inherent that they already know from past lives that gives them a leg up to be closer to being that authentic version of their self in that experience.
Yeah, great points, some good insight and thoughts. But I'm beginning to wonder if really, like a lot of things, we put a little too much thought into what we're trying to achieve and become. And again, as we're talking today, you're right. When did we decide we're really not living the life we want to live, or what our original life is to be? For me, I never thought about that life other than the vision I had was to move away from a small town, and maybe that was driven, obviously I know why it was driven, we've talked about it. If Uncle John wasn't my father's brother and had the experiences that I got growing up when my dad would send me out here to, for a week with Aunt Joyce and Uncle John, I may not have chosen a path outside of what I knew at that time, mm-hmm. which was, again, when I was growing up, steel mills were in their heyday. All we had to do was graduate high school, get a great job in the mill. We got married, kids, and lead a great life. I mean, if that's the path I would have taken, that was the path.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I can only sit and have conjecture about if that's the way life had taken me, what would have been, Well, I know part of what would have been, only because that was what I always wanted. I wanted to be married and, have a family and go that way. But everything else about that life, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So even if we sat down and tried to write a different story, different script, and had a view, a parallel world where I could have seen what that life would have been there versus where we're at today, how different would it have been? Obviously, there'd be the obvious differences, but who knows? That other life may have been better than where I'm at today, with some levels of success as we want to define it. So it's a matter of that for the continuous growing that we do in life, as we've kind of both agree on, we both said it this morning, is that you're living your life at any given moment. The challenges we have of trying to determine whether we grow more as individuals, I think personally that's just, individuals. As you said, some are a little more intimidated by change, but some are also constrained because they can't take some of those jumps due to other circumstances in their lives. And we can have lots of discussions about those circumstances that some people really can't live outside of. There's just not the opportunity for them to do it. Even though, we know that we can take that, but if I'm living in a way that I don't know what those other opportunities are,
mm-hmm.
I may have visions of them only because of what I might see on, a TV or a movie or someone else that crosses my life, versus the experiences we gain through living a life that brings us somewhere. So as I'm growing older and maturing, and I say that in a very positive way, I've always thought of myself as we have to mature through life, become somebody different in those phases.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as you've said about me many times, and it's true, I live too much in my head, and I live too much in thinking too much about things. I mean, that is who part of I am,
mm-hmm.
But I also think that's a strength of mine too, that because I spend a little bit too much time in my head or being pragmatic or slightly drawn back a bit, it is funny how when you look at defining who you are, there are core reasons why we are who we are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we learn those because we learn them, or which also is very interesting, you know, throughout your life you take these tests and to determine the kind of person that you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
All these personality tests and these tendencies that we have that are supposed to drive us to who we are as people. And you think, okay, you know, how scientific is it? Well, it's pretty damn scientific, because when you do those things, you really sit back, if you could sit back, you know, objectively and look at it and say, well, that really does define me. Or is it that we read in the results of those tests and conjure ourselves up to fit that and say, oh yeah, I really do fit this personality, that's because who I am, and then go down that path, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could speak to that to my experience going through life and the companies. You're always given these exams and tests to take, and at any point in time I look at that and go, oh yeah, at this point in time in the 80s and 90s, the trend was to define you in these tendencies, you know, from a John Holland, who is a known psychologist, that defined those in working, that people sought out their careers because that's their life work, and they express their personalities through their life work.
Mm-hmm.
And when you take that exam and you find out which of his 6 tendencies, you look at that and go, oh yeah, that is me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I am enterprising, that I'm one of the 6 is enterprising, but I'm also part of the social one. Then later, you know, kind of get in the early 2000s, you know, the trend was you take this, and I don't remember the name of these tests, but you answer a bunch of questions, you do a bunch of exercises, and they define the color. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you're blue, you're this kind of person. If you're green, you're yellow, or whatever. And then there are other personalities that you can take. And as you do those, you're looking at, well, that is me. And is it a matter of, well, do I just confirm that's who I think I am, and so I go that way? Or is it driven by what I've really found out about myself? So I think for me, the idea of, as you said, maybe we, at this point, and what I wanted to challenge us this morning to talk about is, you know, this whole idea of authenticity and living your authentic life. As you said, maybe it's a new term. So as you're embarking on your driven path right now about life planning, you know, that's what I said. I've always said that about you when you made your jump into being the financial advisor. I've always told people, well, he's not a financial advisor. I mean, yes, he does the financial advising by its definition, by its academic definition and core of helping you decide where you need to go with your finances and what's the best categories to get your diversity and blah, blah, blah. But I said, Justin isn't a charts man. You know, he's not a graphs and charts man. His idea is that he wants you, and you've always done this, right? I mean, from the beginning of your financial career, you've always talked to people. You've always had that part of you, and that part of you to be open and talk to people about what do you want to accomplish, and then let's figure it out. So you always sort of retrofitted the finance into your work with people about where they wanted to go, and that's helping them get to where they want to go. You're in that position to help people. So if I look at myself and go, well, okay, I was similar in a sense that I was always in a position to help define a strategy and then implement that strategy and execute it. But so much of that was about informing, educating, and helping teammates get to where we needed to be, influencing and leading to reach those goals. Very similar to what you're doing in life planning. So as we do this, that's how things went. Now, is what I did in my career and what I feel is so much a part of me, that inner self, I don't know, because I'm still discovering. I'm seeing myself be a little different today. And I think some of that is hanging around you a little bit more than just the typical father-son. So I'm picking up on some of these things that you're bringing forth and learning, and it's forcing me. So again, I wouldn't have had that opportunity if you weren't my son in this capacity and learned that way, or getting these experiences with you, or lucky enough to take the ride with you as you're developing, I develop. So that's a good thing, right? I mean, that's a continuous, journey that we're on, and the learning curve. And as you said, there's a lot of academics that, shout out to a dear friend, Ron Smith, who gave me a book to read. It's called From Strength to Strength by Arthur Brooks. Mm-hmm. And it's about the idea of finding, kind of your happiness, success, and greater purpose in this latter phase of life. Mm-hmm. So to your point, Jay, in that book, Arthur Brooks talks about we have two curves in our life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the first curve is that kind of early curve. I think it's called fluid intelligence. There it is. And that's the part where we are somewhat in our career days and we're learning, we're leading. It's those raw skills we have to make decisions. And then at some point, as people, and it kind of coincides to when you talk about midlife, at some point that curve, the fluid intelligence, you start to lose it. And it really begins to happen. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he has the science to back that up. And so when you read that and you start thinking, well, yeah, it starts to happen at this phase, then you have to decide to move to this next phase of life that he calls kind of a crystallized intelligence. And that's from all of the learning and experience in life you have. That's what you're going to need to jump to and call upon that and decide how you become happy in this phase of life. Because there's different kind of happiness in this phase of life, because you don't have some of the responsibilities you did when you're raising a family or when you're young just trying to start your career. So the idea of defining that happiness is more about that sense of purpose you have in this form of life, because a lot of our purpose, obviously this phase of our life, doesn't exist any longer, right? You know, my career in a traditional sense is over. I decided to leave it and move into the encore phase of life, the retirement. So I don't get the reinforcements of, hey, you're this kind of person, and the successes by career advances or successful implementations, executions of projects and strategies and deliverables and all of that. I'm not seeing these successes as a father with, you know, my son and daughter, because they're now young adults, you know, running their lives. And yes, I can look at that and see in you and seeing Kristen things that I'm really happy to see and go, wow, I guess they really were paying attention to Mom and I and watching you develop your lives. But I also see both of you doing things in life that are so different that, wow, where'd they get this from? And I know it's from your own lives and what you've gained in your experiences. So I think as we do that, and we need to learn, as you said, you know, a little bit afraid of change. Well, it's a little bit more afraid to jump to the next level that's being presented to us. And I can't help but wonder, though, for some who don't want to make that, it may be a decision that they don't need that any longer versus a fear of not doing it. You know, I'll just make it to be a little bit antagonistic for our discussion today. As a millennial and as Justin, the idea of seeing someone not wanting to make that jump is more or less of, well, you know, a little disappointment they don't want to do it, rather than a realization that it's okay not to do it.
I think
That's enough for me.
Oh, I think it's okay. And it's not like, I'm not there to judge. So while I might want to make that leap, I'm not saying that you not making that leap is wrong, but you have to know why you didn't make the leap. And you have to be at peace with, I didn't make the leap for the reasons that are authentic to me. Not that I didn't make the leap because somebody told me I wouldn't succeed, or I didn't make the leap because I saw somebody else do it and they didn't succeed. Like, to me, then, if I was going to judge, to me that would be problematic. But if you made the decision not to make the leap and it was your own choice and you are at peace with it and you know that that is the reason why, then it's like it's nobody's job to judge what you do and you don't do. It's you. And that's part of being authentic. Right. And then not needing anybody else to validate the jump that you do or don't make. You know, and when I talk about the authentic life and living authentically, I'm not saying you have to go veer off the path that you're on. Maybe that's not authentic to you. Maybe what is authentic to you is going down the comfortable path that someone else chose for you because it provides you with everything that you need and you don't want to be subject to those risks. If that is the decision you make and you know you're making it and you know why and you have done the work to make sure you understand that, then that's authentic to you. Like, not everybody has to start a business. Not everybody has to create content. Like, the things that are authentic to me is not what I'm saying has to be authentic to everybody else, but I'm only doing the things that I'm interested in. I'm only doing things that I'm passionate about, and I'm minimizing the things that I'm not passionate about, like down to the point of like dishes and stuff that need to be done. Like I'm not passionate about that, but like I'm not doing anything that I don't want to do. So I'm living true to who I am. And then I'm allowing these experiences to help me discover new things to pursue and things like that. So like that is one of the things that, because I share so much of what it is I'm doing and I create all this content and I put it out there, I don't want people to think that like my version of my authentic life is what your version of your authentic life needs to be. My whole message is live the life that is true to who you are and do the work to understand who you are. Yeah. Understand why you value what you value. Understand why you don't. Understand why you don't do things. Understand your fears. Like, do the work. And for some people, it's easier to figure that stuff out. And for other people, you need a therapist. Like, but do the work to connect to who you are on the inside, and that will be your key to living authentically. And if you live authentically, I think you're going to maximize your happiness and fulfillment, and you will always have purpose. Because as you evolve with that authentic version of yourself, purpose will always be there. So if you aren't, and I don't know if your purpose should be found in accolades from work and all those types of things. Maybe not. I think purpose is more aligned with like service to others. And in your service to others, then accolades and money and those things come. But I don't think purpose should be attached to those things, because I think when you attach your purpose to those things, then you find out you don't have any purpose eventually, because they go away. And now you're not getting your validation from the promotions and the money or the titles or all those types of things. And now you're left seeking purpose, where you can have your purpose and still get all those things. And when those things go away, you still know who you are. That goes back to the avatar of the person who has all the money and all the success but is unhappy, because they've attributed their identity to their riches or their success or their titles. And when they finally hit a point of realizing those things don't really matter, they're not making more money, is not making me happier, higher progress up the corporate ladder is not making me happier, these things don't really matter to me, who the hell am I? You can go up those ladders knowing who you are if you do the work. And to me, that's where the spirit, mind, body alignment comes in. That's what's worked for me. Doesn't necessarily have to work for everybody, but finding your own way to connect to who you are and then maintaining that connection. And then knowing how, if you start to disconnect or move away, how to get back really closely. So like I have prioritized getting back to yoga 4 days a week and not doing 2 days or 1 days or no days, and making sure that I'm getting the meditation in writing, because I've got some decisions and some things I'm thinking through and future of life planning and what does that look like and what am I supposed to do? Like I have a lot of things I'm thinking about right now as my authentic life evolves, and where is it going to evolve to and how do I evolve with it? And I think the only way that I'm going to be able to navigate that is maintaining my spirit, mind, body alignment, because then I will be connected to my authentic self. I'll have a better understanding of what is a force and what is not a force, and where am I supposed to go. And then I also will get all the signs from the universe. I won't miss them. So those things are really important right now to help me do that. But it's all just connecting back to, I know who I am today, and I know how to stay connected to that. I know how to give myself room to not be a robot. But then when things really need to be figured out, I can pull myself back in and reconnect to that. So the authentic life is unique to everybody. There's no one right way to find it. There's no one right way to live it, other than Like everybody knows if they're being true to themselves or if they're putting on an act. And we all put acts on it sometimes because we're human beings, but can you put on your act as little as possible and be true to who you are? Yeah. And it's not easy. It's not. And I know it's harder for others, but I think it's worth it. And that's why authenticity will fall out of favor, is because it's hard work.
Yeah. Well, maybe we mark this moment in time. Just speaking of which, we'll make sure we don't go too crazy so that we don't get people to watch all of us in lengthwise. So maybe we mark today as an opportunity to, take the buzzword authentic or authenticity away out of such discussions and maybe discuss what's really important is, people finding, that purpose or that vision about who they are and become happy. So maybe it's more about defining the happiness and the purpose of your life, not necessarily in the academic sense of purpose, because then, lots been written about that, about finding your purpose in life. Well, what the hell's that? I mean, I don't know, my purpose in life is to be a good person. My purpose in life was to be the best husband and father and now grandfather that I can be. And all that is who really I want to be, right? So that all defines and comes back to it. So maybe it's more about living your life. So maybe we don't even need to use the term authenticity or authentic. Maybe it's just define your life, and have a discussion around being just, coming to a reckoning of who you are, which obviously changes throughout life because we become who we are, right? And,
I do think
you have to be honest and be humble with yourself.
I do think authentic is important to include, because live your life is what it is. But the key in there being but I think people don't know if it's their life. But to me, adding the word authentic, that is unique to you. So to me, having authentic be a part of it just stresses the your part of live your life, to make sure you're living the life that you want to live. And again, it can be shaped and molded by others, but knowing and understand that your life's path has been shaped and molded by others, and you like that and that's what you want, is the important part. Going through not even knowing or questioning it leaves it open to be, is this really what you want? If you don't know why you're living the life that you want, you don't know the influences on it, and you don't know why you've gone down that path, then maybe that's not the path you really want. Because when you step back and you realize, oh, I'm doing this because of this, well, that doesn't even really resonate with me. So maybe I don't even really want to be doing this. And then you open up and you explore. Like exploration and experimentation is really important to figure out, and use your interest and your passions to kind of guide you to what it is you're supposed to be exploring, experimenting, and then live. Like, notice how you feel. Notice what lights you up. Notice what doesn't. Do more things that make you excited. Do more things that make you happy. Do more things that light you up. And I think continue to follow that. Yep. And if there are things that you don't like, can you eliminate them? Why don't you like them? Like, you can overthink, but also I think thinking about things and evaluating, understanding, it doesn't have to be that deep. But yeah, you can totally overthink yourself and keep yourself from getting to the authentic life because you're trying to make too much out of it. And I think that all goes back to the feeling. How do you feel? Do you feel discontent? Do you feel content? Do you feel happy? Do you feel sad? Like, use the internal feeling as kind of a guide to, okay, I'm moving in the right direction, or the direction I'm moving in, something's not right, and I got to figure out what it is.
Yeah, I think that's the key, and I'm gonna put out a couple more points here, and then we're gonna close this up.
But before you do the points, let me start and stop.
We back?
Yeah, we're back.
Okay, but one thing we got to do, though, even though your studio is pretty well complete, you got to get a little table or something. So
I'm gonna get a table there so I can put the digital recorder on there,
so we can put something on there instead of going down on the floor.
Well, I don't want drinks up until someone's paying me to put the drinks up there. Element, you pay everybody on podcasts. Do you want to pay me?
Well, got to start somewhere. So maybe that's the pitch. Maybe we'll have somebody from Element watching this and enjoy it. Right?
I thought about having, like, drinking something regularly that I really like, but putting black tape around it, because I don't ever want to have ads that are inauthentic to me. So I don't want to ever have an ad for my podcast and you're like, well, there's no, that's not him. He's not doing that. So what I would love to do is, like, whether it be that, or back in the day I was drinking Liquid Death. We were drinking that on the podcast before that blew up. Like, it'd be really cool to have always be drinking this thing. There's black tape on it, enough showing that you can maybe connect to what it is. And then one day, if they decide to, like, throw some sponsorship money or some ad dollars this way, the tape is no longer there. And you're like, oh, he's been drinking that for years on the podcast. That's truly authentic to him. That's a genuine sponsorship because he's been drinking it forever. And then you remove the tape.
Okay. So on that, real quick, I know the danger with you and I having this free time, because I know you don't have anything on the back end of this, and I surely don't, other than getting grass cut. So you're saying if you would only put something up that you like to be seen, if you get a little bit of a, endorsement of it, but if someone sees this podcast, comes to you and says, try this, and you end up not liking it, and they're going to give you X amount of cash,
I wouldn't take it.
You wouldn't take it?
No.
Okay. I just wanted to
I
clarify.
I mean,
I just wanted to
no,
clarify.
I wouldn't take it.
Okay.
I wouldn't take it.
I just want to clarify, get that on record.
Because they're not going to they're not going to give me enough money to consider
first
compromising.
Of all, you don't know, first of all, you never know that.
I mean, it would be millions they're going to give me, and they're not giving me millions for sponsoring this podcast.
I just want to get this on record, so I just want to make sure
you will never see an advertisement on any of my content that is not something that I was already using before the sponsorship came.
Okay. I just want to get that on record and make sure your value set remains the same when we're 10 years down the road and someone wants to offer you $5 million to do something you don't like to do.
Because by then I won't need the money. The money won't motivate me.
Okay.
I'm not going to compromise.
Okay.
Like I've always been that way. Like back in the day when I would share my technology stack with financial advisors. Like I think one of the things that really helped me in the advisor space grow my presence was I was authentic. I was genuine. I was sharing what it was I liked and what I didn't like. And so that if I said, hey, I'm using this technology, people knew that I was really using it and that I found value in it and it went somewhere. No. I never turned that into like ad dollars or anything, but that wasn't my motivation. Okay. So no, I will never have an advertisement. I may never have an advertisement, period, because I may not have enough downloads, but I will never have an advertisement on any of my content that is not something that I was already using before. Now, a scenario could be something I'm not aware of. They present themselves to me. I use it for a while, and then I'm like, okay, yeah, I really do like this. Let's talk. So not to say that they can't bring it to me to my attention, but I will not all of a sudden one day be like, this episode is sponsored by this company, and you've never seen me or heard me talk about it before.
Okay. I just want to make sure, because I think that's kind of in an odd way and leading us that way back to getting out of, referencing all this as being authentic or getting away from the buzzword or the trend of today with you, is that thinking more or less that maybe instead of it's being authentic, it's just about being genuine.
Yeah.
Right? The idea of being genuine, true to yourself, being happy, that to me is what always drove me through life, and especially now I'm appreciating that more now in today's, is that when I really look back, and we all do this, we all look at our life and reflect upon it, when we look at it in the past, when we're finally in a different phase of life, is that I did live my life. In fact, you kind of said the words, but it's a lyric that I've used many times from the Temptations song, live the life, live the life I love the life I live, it is important because that reflects the changes. But I think it's the idea, as you said, being true to yourself. So being genuine. It is original because I am one, right? Mm-hmm. You use that idea of you want to remain yourself because of all the unique talents and gifts you have. But also it's the idea of not just being genuine, but being truly happy with yourself, where you're at any given point in life. And I think that's key. And to try to close this up very quickly, I think where we're landing, again, in a funny way, your book you love to death, The Alchemist, is in there. There's a phrase that talks about to realize one's destiny is a person's only obligation. Mm-hmm. I think that's what we're all on, right? We're all on a journey. We're all trying to get to our destiny, just like Santiago in the book, right? Is the personal legend, the soul of the world, all those concepts. If you think about everything that we've talked about this morning, the way we've been living our lives, everything about me and where I'm at now, 68 is the idea of that, I did follow a path and things did happen. We had challenges, we had controversy, we had, trauma. That's just life and adapting to it. Having the luxury of having good people, mentors, bosses, come across my path, enabled me to be more of who I am, to explore. My last boss that I had, for several years, Lori, that was her strength. She has just allowed her people to be themselves and develop. And she just kind of just put you out in the sun, nurtured you, gave you her expertise, her intelligence and smarts, and got us to where you need to be.
You just brought up something, though, that I think back to the whole boomer millennial thing. Like, your generation wasn't told to go pursue your passions. Your generation wasn't told go find yourself. Like it was, to your point, go graduate high school, go get a job at the mill, have a family, retire with your pension at 55, 60, whatever it might be, and then go live your life. Like that was the narrative that you guys were all given. And I still think that narrative came through into the beginning of when I was growing up. But I think that with my generation and the younger ones, like the world is our oyster. Maybe it's because technology has made things more accessible to us and there's more opportunity for us. Like you didn't have the opportunity necessarily to go create more of a life that you might have wanted because there's limitation, going back to limitations. So I don't think that the path you went down was wrong. But I wonder if you had gone back in time and someone had told you, hey, you can really choose the life that you want and there's you can control your destiny, would you have chosen the same path? I don't think you would have, because you had business cards that said J&K Associates and you always wanted to start your own business and you didn't. I think I know why you didn't start the business, but I think that being a business owner and having your own consulting agency was closer to your authentic self than staying in the corporate world. But you stayed in the corporate world because that was deemed to be safer and better for you, because that's the path that we're all supposed to go down, and corporations are the safe route. But the reality is you may have been better off starting J&K Associates, having that little start off period, but then no one could mess with you. Yeah. Like being at an employer for 24 years and being let go before your 25th year when you vest in the pension, playing the safe route that you were told to do that may or may not have been what you would have chosen for yourself. Like, I don't think people want to take on that. Like, people are realizing that the safe route is not necessarily the safe route.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So again, I don't think there's anything wrong with what you did, but I think starting J&K Associates would have been more true to who you were. But for whatever reasons we know, and then probably other reasons we don't know, maybe Pubba's, grocery store going under and seeing what a business failing might do to somebody weighed on you heavy enough to not bet on yourself to go do J&K Associates. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but if we were having this conversation with you back then, I wonder if you had that awareness, if you could have worked through that. If you could have identified, okay, this is what I'm really called to do and this is what I want to do, but here's these things that are holding me back. Benefits, well, we can address that. All these things. But then there's this thing of watching my dad's grocery store, go under because IGA came in and the mill shut down. Like being able to work through that and then realizing, okay, well, that's what happened to him. That's not a guarantee of what's going to happen to you. And what are things that you can do in preparation to minimize that as the outcome, or to give yourself a soft landing if that is the outcome. And the reality of it is, maybe starting your own business meant you would have burnt through some savings and stuff that you had, but you burnt through some of that stuff anyways, right, because of other people's decisions. Yeah. So no one told you that was okay to think that way. Like that was not a part of what you were taught, and that wasn't a part of what people were talking about back then. So again, going back, I want people to be looking at starting their J&K Associates and then know fully why they are or aren't doing it, rather than just the surface level things that we have been told are important and not to stray away from, for maybe there's ulterior motives in the system. But so anyways.
Yeah. No, I think it's
but that's the big difference between us, I think, is just, your generation wasn't told, there wasn't From Strength to Strength being written. Like there were a few books out there, like Napoleon Hill, and there are some books out there that if you happen to stumble across them back then, but no one was talking about it. And nobody was talking about authenticity and living your authentic life and pursuing that. It was, here's the way to live a good life. Go follow that. Yeah. And again, it led to a lot of great lives for people, and you're not unhappy, but there are experiences you missed out on because you were never told, hey, that thing you think you might want to go do, explore it more beyond just printing the business cards. Like the thing that's cool about that, I think about, is you were in the beginning of manifesting that business. like that would be a part of it. You were envisioning, you were acting as if you had the business cards printed up. Like you could see it, but then there was something that was heavier back then that kept that from being a belief.
Yeah. Well, I that's very fair and very, very true. And I only, like I said, will add, the decision not to continue to pursue was, as you said, probably more that inner discipline of mine, because I drew a line in the sand that said, I'll only blow through this amount to try to have something work. And that was, 2.5 years of trying to manifest J&K with a couple things I was doing. But then once I reached that point where I was almost at the line drawn in the sand that, had with Mom, it was like, okay, we're here and the future doesn't look like I can go further. So I need to get back to, if you would, the comfortable life of getting the job. So, probably I'll just say this, probably where I failed was, okay, I may have had to go back and get a job because I decided not to go behind that line in the sand. And where I maybe could have, if I had someone to really talk to through it or believe that I could, and still did it on the side, right? The side hustle thing, right? So you're right. Back then, there wasn't anything really a side hustle to kind of give me that thought to do more or to do it.
You said something that was really important, though, or believed that I could.
Yeah.
There was disbelief.
Yeah.
And that disbelief is what pulled that back from possibly having. And again, everything worked out.
Everything
We got
worked out, right.
Not
Everything
a bad
worked out,
thing,
yeah.
but I just.
Because then we can also go, well, had I tried that and didn't go the other way, getting that opportunity that I did to land with at that time, with Zurich and get connected with Lori, and then from the Zurich days through retirement time,
you wouldn't have needed it.
We wouldn't have known, right? As you said, we don't know. But kind of to wrap and close this up to some of the things you were saying. Again, it's kind of interesting when we have our conversation, and then what's being backed up by some experts. So I had mentioned this book that Ron gave me, but just as something you said, that it talks about. He talks about in the search of true success in work and life, they need to just ask their why. We've talked about this, right? The idea of why. You always mention that. And, to unlock their true potential and happiness, you just need to articulate the deep purpose in life and shed the activities that are not in service of that purpose. So again, I think that summarizes a little bit of the idea of getting to that. I'm not going to use authentic anymore. Kind of that genuine life.
Genuine is one of my. I think genuine is one of my favorite words.
Is good to use because it's.
If you're living genuine, then that's going to put you close to your authentic life. But I don't think we should shy away from using authentic, and let the buzzword people water that word down. I think we need to stand strong on authenticity is important. Authentic is not it may be a buzzword to some, but it is a very meaningful word. And we're not going to let those people water it down. No. So you don't have to use it, but I'm standing strong, 10 toes down on authentic. I'm not budging from it.
Okay. So you can be authentic. I want to say you need to be, so the difference between the generations. You can stay with authentic and the buzzword and the, and the fade.
Genuine
the
will be the next buzzword.
Is the fad, right? Because that was, again, you're going back to this thing, right? You look at you millennials, the idea was everything was a fad. Certain fad came in, you guys jumped on it and believed it.
That was in your generation too.
Yeah, that was a lot of you. That was a lot of you. You jumped in a lot of fads and did it for a while, and it had purpose. It defined you. You did some things. It was still, there's still benefit to it all, but it was a fad. You jumped in it. You put all your heart and soul into it. Back to my earlier statement about you on the court. When you hit that court, there's nothing but hours, focus, dedication, leadership, athletic ability. You were born to be a shooter. That's you. Even today, that was you. Even when you were a little kid, in the Y, 3-4 hours at a clip.
All right, we've been through all this already.
Okay, but anyhow, so I did to wrap it up. I just wanted to wrap it up. Wrap it up to say I think it's funny, at least to me, it is looking at all this in retrospect, seeing it all, defining who it all. So be genuine, be true to your values, be afraid to when you need to be afraid, because I think that brings in the proper caution that you need to exercise that thought process, collaborate. All of that's what I think really this all means from a boomer perspective. And you're right, we're all victims to some of the disciplines we had growing up. So as always, Jay, thanks for this time. You're right, we probably can go on further. that's the bad thing with having us both together. Back to similarities, right? So I'll just wrap up as I always do by, saying that we just never got to, we never quit searching, never settle and never give up finding that greater purpose, because I think it changes wherever we're at in life. And for me now, at this phase of life, my greater purpose I'm finally settling into is, it's just being happy. Just being happy with time, being happy with moments. I've been that way my whole life, but now I need to be even more happier and enjoy the moments more fully, and to be genuine with myself. I think that's the key. For this point in life, be genuine to yourself. Be true to yourself. Everything else you lived, you worked, and here's where it needs to be. So you get that happiness in the life ahead. So as always, man, it's a pleasure. Thank you. We'll see what has to the next time. Maybe there'll be a 16th.
There'll be a 16th. And I think your purpose extends beyond that. I think part of your purpose in the Encore is to encourage other people heading into or already in their Encore to think about these types of things. So
it's all good, man. It's all good and where we need to be. So make the better part of this day and week, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Sounds good.
Later.